Hello, welcome back and thanks for joining me. Today's video I'm going to be talking about releasing your music as a producer. Self-releasing your music or releasing on a record label. And before I start like a finance video, this isn't financial advice, this is not career advice, this is just my 2 cents and my perspective. This is going to be geared towards the techno scene, similar to the scene I'm involved in as a producer, as a record label owner. But I do want to speak about it. It's been something that I've been seeing pop up on people's stories on social media that I follow, forums, and it also came about when I did a Q&A last week on Instagram. Someone had asked me my opinion on self-releasing music or releasing on a record label, which I thought was an interesting topic. So then I replied to that, reposted it, and then that repost had heaps of traction, and so many more DMs came in directly to me asking me more about it and seeking advice or my opinion on it. What I'm about to go through is more so geared towards my own personal experiences, my opinion, and leaning towards that techno scene. So my 2 cents is I believe you should do both. Now, there's also a few things to break down here. When I say do both, that's more leaning towards more of a beginner, more of someone who's trying to gain momentum and actually build a profile as a producer. I think doing both from that position is a really good way to create momentum. Now, self-releasing also comes in a few different forms. Right now, what I'm seeing, and I see this through demo submissions, I see this through general interaction online, also a lot of the mastering I'm doing, is coming from young producers who have just started, they're DJing locally in their hometown, they're trying to break out, they're trying to potentially tour around Europe, a lot of them are already based there, and they're just trying to get traction and support from bigger artists to get social proof so they can share content of bigger artists playing their songs at festivals or at clubs, or sharing their live sets and their recordings because they've been playing their tracks. So if we go down the road of self-release, pure self-release, the first form of that is using SoundCloud as a tool, because instantly you can finish your track, mix it, have it mastered, put it out in your SoundCloud, free download. The beauty of that now is that has its own sort of chart. I think it's the hype chart or whatever it is, and you can gain momentum through that. You can have full control on the artwork, the mastering, and even the potential reach of the promo. And the free download, I'm pretty certain to free download it with some ways you organize it, you then need to get their email address to do that. That's another good way to sort of build your own little list of promo or people who support your music or your fan base, and then you can collectively put that into MailChimp or anything like that to then connect directly with people who like your audience. So that's a really good thing to start off with as well. Another form of self-release I'm seeing, which has been common for a long time, but I see it more and more now, is where the artist is starting their own record label. So it is going across all distributors and it's coming out on Apple, Spotify, and all those platforms, Beatport, etc. But then they have full control of their schedule. In most cases, they're probably just releasing their own music. The beauty of that is it's a bit more official than the SoundCloud release, even though those tracks would still go on SoundCloud for reach and promo and stuff like that and content. But it is then hitting all the distributors. So it is coming out as an official release where it can still be purchased on Beatport and stuff like that. But then by having that, the beauty of that is you can get it out fast. You can still control the content. You can still control the artwork, the mastering, all that stuff, and the promo as well. You have full control of that. So self-release in that perspective comes in two ways. The SoundCloud route, I think, is more geared towards beginners who are like fresh out, don't really have a fan base or a social media following, and they're just trying to gain momentum. But the beauty of the SoundCloud is, and SoundCloud in general, is now you can DM and send your tracks privately, exclusively to artists' inboxes. And a lot of artists, especially bigger artists in the scene now, they use that as a source of their promo to play unreleased music or forthcoming releases. And the upside of that is you get instant feedback. You can see with the insights of SoundCloud who's downloaded it, who's played it, who's listened to it. And you've probably seen as well, an artist will send promo out through SoundCloud, and then on their social media, they'll share who's downloaded it. And they can say, supported by DJ X, DJ Y, DJ Z. What that does is you can then start building that relationship with those bigger artists that you look up to or you aspire to. And, they've been playing your music, they've downloaded it. The first thing is you could probably start following their social media or their live DJ sets, and you'll probably hear your music inside of that. And then you can share those sets or share those videos. And I used to do that a lot when I was coming up a little bit. But also, I think the biggest advantage point of that is then building on that relationship with the artist organically. And that's going to take time, I understand that. But they've been paying you music, release after release. And if that bigger artist has a label, that might be a way to then introduce yourself and get potentially onto their label if that was something you're trying to do. But then the self-release, it isn't really self-release, but if you're starting your own label under your own name or your own brand and then controlling that content, I think the good thing is that you do have full control. You can release as frequently as you'd like to, whether that's busy or not busy, but then it's still officially coming out across distributors. So it's still coming out as an official release. It'll be on your Beatport, your Spotify's and all of that. The record label side of things, I'm a bit more old-fashioned. I run a label. I've had Green Fetish Records since 2013. It's about 15 years now. Is that 15? No, 12 years now. And I've had labels before that. I haven't really self-released anything like on the SoundCloud route. That wasn't really something that was around or something to do when I had first started producing. My goal was always to get on record labels. When I started Green Fetish, I didn't start it to release my own music on it exclusively, but I did start to release music on it after, I think, the 10th release. And it was more so a home for my music where it would eliminate the time or the potential schedule of waiting for my music to come out, because I'd work so hard in the studio, have it mixed, have it mastered, and then I was sending demos out, and getting signed to a label can take time. Maybe not as long as it does now, but more so by the time the artist hears it or the label owner hears it, agrees to sign it, sends an agreement, works out the artwork, works out the mastering, gives you a release date and schedules it out. You got to remember, a lot of those labels already have a back catalogue of signed releases ready to come out, maybe monthly or every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks. So I believe, depending on the position you're in, from a beginner, if you're starting out getting momentum, do both. I would self-release on SoundCloud as a free download, accumulate emails, start sending that stuff to the people you look up to or bigger artists, start building those relationships organically. But in the back end of that, while that's happening, you can gain momentum so your audience or your fan base can see that you're an active producer, because I believe activity is extremely important as a producer, especially if you're trying to break out just outside of producing and DJ and actively get gigs or actively tour. It shows social proof that you're producing, you're active, and you're in the studio, you're working. I would always be working on production like I used to. I still do now, but not as much as I used to. And the idea of that is to have music always on the shelf, so that if I did get signed, I could follow up if the label wanted it, or if I just wanted to hit them again, or wanted to send it on to the next label. I had music ready to go. Because the last thing you want is sort of have all this momentum and then someone hits you up, or because of the record label release, another label's heard you, or another big label's heard you. They contact you because they're interested because they heard your music, and then you're fucking sitting on your ass because you don't have anything ready. Which isn't a big deal in some cases, because they might be patient and willing enough to wait for your music. But if you've got it ready to go, that momentum just keeps going. Just turning that wheel is a lot easier if you've got stuff on the shelf. But saying that too, it also depends on everyone's goals. Me personally, several years ago, and more so now, but more so several years ago, when I was really trying to become established as a producer to start DJing and touring, I had goals on, like, I knew fucking what labels I wanted to be on, and I followed those labels closely, the labels owners closely, and I was involved in those similar crowds or niches or scenes, because within the techno scene, which is such a huge term now, you'll notice there are subcategories or sub-scenes of similar artists that are on this label that this DJ plays, and there's little brands and families without the whole industry, which I'm sure you've noticed and aware of. But they were my goals always. And I think having that goal, even though it could be hard to achieve, and a lot of rejection and stuff like that, that was my driving force to get on this label, to get on that label. And I had sort of planned it out in a stepping stone way of achieving that. Also, maybe not as big now, but every release I did, I wanted it to be on vinyl. I'm a vinyl collector. I have thousands of records here in the studio physically. That was one of my goals, not only getting on the label, but having my music on vinyl, seeing the artwork of my vinyl and stuff like that. And I believe truly that there's no better feeling than getting out to your mailbox and your fucking music is on vinyl. That may not be that important in this generation or amongst the masses anymore, but I still try and push for that. It's not as available as it once was years ago, especially pre-COVID, but it's still something I aim for, and every year I still try to get my music onto a record of some sort. So from the beginner standpoint, self-release, build your momentum, your social media, your audience, but whilst you're doing that and remaining active as a producer, the stuff you had on the shelf, I'd be sending out to those record labels you want to get onto. Because as I said, that could take time. It might be a few months before a reply, or let's say they've replied fast by the time it gets signed and artwork and set in a release date and they organise a promo, that could take months. So the last thing you want, I believe, as a producer is you've made a whole bunch of tracks, you've been busting your ass in the studio, honing on your craft, getting better, and then you send everything out to a few labels. A big mistake is I think some people just send it to one label always, which is okay. I understand why that may be, but if you don't hear from that label or there's no context between you and the label owner prior to that, your music might not even be heard. And then if it is and it's a no, and that no took 3 months to hear or 4 months to hear, well then you've been busting your ass in the studio, it took a few months to make some tracks, you've sent everything out, you've been waiting like a sitting duck, and then fucking nothing's been signed. So then 6 to 9 months has gone past, and DJ Mickey, under your profile and your brand, you've had no music come out. You could look inactive as a producer. So I think, especially beginning out, get your fucking music out there, self-release it, with the aspiration to get signed to labels, but you're keeping busy, you're keeping active. For me personally, obviously there's, I don't know who's watching, but it'd be a range of people who are already actively in the scene and busy. They probably have the luxury of having the name and they've put the years in. They'll keep getting signed to record labels, and I understand why. I get that completely. I believe getting signed to a record label that you wanted to be on is a really amazing feeling to achieve, especially if it's one that you've been a fan of, you've followed, or you've bought their records. And also, if you get signed to that label and the label does it right with promo and reach, and if it's on vinyl and stuff like that, it really can expose you to audiences or other bigger DJs or other bigger artists in the scene that you probably wouldn't have got with a self-release. But then saying that now, I'm seeing a lot of stuff that I've done mastering for with self-release SoundCloud stuff where they've released it, it's just gone fucking bang, and it's had 100,000 plays, 200,000 plays, that has reached bigger audiences, bigger artists, and then those bigger artists who have labels have then contacted that artist because they're such a fan of that track or the EP or whatever it is, and then have hit them up directly for the release on their label. So they've actually double dipped in that circumstance. So there's no real right or wrong way to do it. I'm not advising anyone to do one set thing. I just believe, I know the landscape has changed. I understand the argument recently that I've been seeing online is that record labels, even the biggest labels, it doesn't hold as much weight anymore getting signed to that label. If you did, and this isn't any fault due to the label or anything like that, more so the way the scene is now, that's not going to then translate directly to gigs or boosting up your profile and things like that. That I do slightly agree with. I think it doesn't do as much as it once did years ago. I'm talking within my realm, but that can be argued. That's completely subjective. There's definitely cases where you get signed to that label and Salada Biscuits on special, off you go. So that's my 2 cents on that. I hope that helped. On top of all of that, what's worked for me is organic relationships. Everyone I've worked with, for me getting signed to their label, has been normally through friendship, communication, and there's always been some sort of relationship there of similarities, mutual friends, things like that. Even when I'm signing someone to Green Fetish, I think we've had 100 and something releases. I've maybe only signed 3 demos where like the demos come in, I've loved it so much that I've signed it. That's not to say that, I don't listen to the demos or anything like that, but normally everything that's been released has been through people I've communicated with over the years on social media, online and chatting, or just being a fan of their music and contacting them, sending them some promo, then going back and forth. So I'm a huge believer in organic relationships. That can take a lot longer, understand that. That's maybe not something that is as important to a lot of people these days in this sort of tech-based era. But for me, extremely important, and that can, I believe, help create longevity. It can help build your trust and your perception to other people, so it can keep you busy within the scene. And lastly, it depends what your goal is. I'm telling you now, you make your fucking music. You're obviously proud of it, you love it, you want it to get out, gets on the record label. But if it gets on vinyl, and I know vinyl's not important to everyone, but if it gets on fucking record, if it gets on wax and it comes in the mail and you've got the artwork and you can take it out and physically show it and put on the wall, I think is one of the best feelings or best rewards you can have as a producer. And this isn't a plug, but this is just how cool it is. Physical record, control of the artwork. I'm Aussie, down under, if you didn't know. The whole fucking theme of that. Putting on the back, having it written or designed like, the back of a book like an author, having the credits there. And then physically getting it out on record. And, again, having control of the artwork, again over there. Shout out Slam, Ansem and Ossian 2020. But I believe it is one of the coolest things you can do as a producer or a band, regardless what you're in, because it's just fucking unreal. So, I hope that helps. It's not advice, it's just my perspective on it. Hit down below in the comments. I know it's been going off on social media. I'm going to do another thing on Instagram about it. And some people hitting me up about actually creating those organic relationships and how I went about it and what my thoughts on that was. So I might do a part 2 about networking in the scene or whatever scene you're in. So if you'd like that and you like this video, let me know below. But yeah, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll be back. Thanks for listening.